This lesson is about creating dashed lines. A dashed line is drawn just like a regular line, except the drawing of the line is turned on and off as it proceeds. To do this, you will need to create an array that specifies the pattern, and then include that array in the constructor of the basic stroke object, the one you're going to use to control the shape of the line. Here's an example. Here is the creation of a simple basic stroke object, one that creates a dashed line. The line is set to be 20 pixels wide so we can see exactly how it's going to be shaped. The lines end with a cap butt, that is, they're just squared off on the end. Joints are made using a join bevel, but there are no junctures in this example, so it could really be set to anything. This float value is a limit on the miter trimming of corners. Now this is the name of the pattern that produces the dashed lines. This last number is usually 0 because it specifies the number of pixels into the dashed pattern that the pattern is to be used, and it usually starts at the beginning of the pattern. Now this is the dash pattern that's used to draw the first line. It's 40 and 40. Dash lines always start with a line drawing turned on. In this example, since we are starting at offset 0, the line will be turned on for 40 pixels and then turned off for 40 pixels. At this point, the pattern is started over again from the beginning and the line is turned on again for 40 more pixels. Now this second line is drawn basically the same way, except it uses the second dash pattern. This pattern starts out with a line turned on for 40 pixels and then turns it off for 20 pixels before starting over from the beginning again with it turned on for 40. Now these last two lines use the same dash pattern. This dash pattern is set up for 40 on, 30 off, then 20 on, then 10 off, then it starts over at the beginning. This example uses that third dash pattern starting from its beginning. But this last one uses the dash pattern starting at an offset of 70. That means it will start reading the dash pattern here, skipping the first 70, then it will go to 10, then to 40, then to 30, and on down the line. Maybe I should point out that all of the dash patterns we have here have an even number of entries. Now that's not absolutely necessary. You can have an odd number of entries in the dash pattern array. That will cause the on and off switches to be different each time it turns around and goes back through the array. But these have an even number. Let me show you what they look like. Here you can see where the lines just follow the dash patterns and turn on and off. Notice the last two lines. Even though they use the same dash pattern, they start at different points in the array. But other than that, they are the same. Once you have a basic stroke object and insert it inside a graphics object, it will affect every line you draw, even shapes. Let me show you a program that uses a dash line to draw some shapes. These are the same shapes that we drew in the previous lesson. Now this is the same basic stroke object that we used for the first dashed line in the previous example. It's created using the same setup as before. The lines are 20 pixels wide. The dash pattern starts at the very beginning. And just like in the examples from the previous lesson, we use the static method of the bunch of shapes object to create an array containing the 4 shapes, and then each one of the shapes is drawn one at a time. Here's the result. All 4 shapes are drawn with dashed lines. It doesn't matter whether we're drawing polygons or a bunch of straight lines, they all come out in that same dashed pattern. I want to show you one more thing about dashed lines. Now this program is exactly the same as the one I just showed you, except the style of the line is different. In this example, the ends of the lines are given a rounded ending, and the lines themselves are joined at the corners by being rounded. Now here's how this comes out. The shapes and lines are exactly the same, except the corners and endings are now rounded. That's about all there is to drawing lines in Java. I suggest you do some experimenting with the line thickness, endings, corners, and dashes. Some of the results are surprising, and you'll be surprised at how flexible this whole thing is. Mixing all this up with color lets you really get some strange appearances, and later on we're going to be getting into transparency, which adds a whole new dimension to everything. But next, we're going to start taking a close-up look at fonts.